Hey there friends, it's Missy again. Thanks so much for stopping in today. I have a new layout to share for Hip Kit Club, and this is my first layout using the 2020 August kits. And I'm going to be using a cut file, and this is one of the summer cut files that's been up for a while. It's the one that says Hello Summer and there's a big sunshine behind it. I just took the hello part of that, resized it, and then staggered it and welded it together to make one big cut file. And I cut it twice because I want to create a fun little interesting shadow effect, kind of like that. And then I'm going to use 3 photos today. These are some of my favorite kinds of photos to scrap. This is Paige trying to give me major kisses one day, and she basically attacks your face when she wants to give you a kiss. And so had to get some shots of that, and these pictures just make me smile and laugh because that's just her. And I'm going to try to tuck them into the little nooks and crannies created by this cut file. And I cut it once on white cardstock and then once on one of the exclusive pattern papers. And I'm going to put the white one on top and do some stuff to that later. So for my background, this paper is so pretty. It's from the cardstock kit. It's a basil, smooth, thick cardstock, and the color is named Serenity, and it's kind of like a cross between a periwinkle and a cornflower blue. It's very, very pretty, and I thought that that would make a really nice background. So I'm going to do some mixed media on it, and I'm going to prep it first with some white gesso here. And you can see here that when you put white gesso on colored cardstock, you got to work fast if you want it to smudge because it dries pretty quickly. And right now it just looks like a big white smudgy splotch. But I'm going to cover a lot of this up. And this background, like many of my backgrounds lately, is a journey. But I think the end result is awesome. And so we're going to start this journey with some of the Art Philosophy ink pads that we get in the color kit this month. This color is so pretty. It's called Hydrangea Petals, and I'm going to start by basically making it into watercolor. I'm stamping it onto some plastic, spritzing that with water to kind of activate it, and then flipping it over and smushing it down. And while this color is beautiful, it's pretty light. I mean, it's a darker, bolder blue, but as you can see here, once I add water to it and smush it down, it lightens it up quite a bit. And so I thought that I would just start there. I love to add layers upon layers upon layers, making my background sometimes. And so that's what's going to happen today. I'm also going to pull in the Summer Vibes color that we got a few months ago. It's more of a light turquoise color. So I'm just going to do the same technique, put it on the plastic, spritz it with water, smush it down, and just kind of blend and see what I can come up with here. What I thought that I would do is kind of aim for different shades of blue on top of this blue cardstock. And I never know how different products and different colors are going to react with the paper and the gesso. Now this is something that we get in the main kit this month. This is a Nuvo crystal drops called Midnight Blue. And I thought I would just try this right quick. Same technique, water it down, flip it over, and it didn't really work that well. So I'm gonna not even worry about trying that again. And you can see here that it dried pretty light. Like I said, these colors are bold when used for stamping, but when you add water to them and things like that, they change. So I'm gonna come back in with the same colors, the same ink pads, and try not to maybe water them down as much, because the less water I add, the darker they're going to be. However, I don't want it to look like I just smushed an ink pad down. I want it to look like watercolor, which means I need to use a brush with some water. So I'm going to just do the same thing again. And I feel like the more I add to it, the bolder the color is going to get and the more visible it's going to get. And remember, I'm going to put that hello cut file right on top of this. And so you're going to be able to see this through the cut file and around the edges of it. So I'm not going for perfection here. I'm just going for something a little darker, different shades of blue. So I'm going to let the background start to dry, and then I'm going to work on this white cardstock here. I'm going to use some white, no, that's not white, that's clear gesso with my finger just to prep this cardstock, because this cardstock here that I cut this on is just plain cheap white textured cardstock that I had in my stash. So it's pretty flimsy. So I'm going to let that gesso dry and then come back to my background. And you can see here it's lightening up again, but I still like how it looks. I'm still getting the hints of these different blue shades. And since I cut the hello in white, and then you can see over there to the right that painterly paper with all the pinks and the oranges, I'm going to have a lot of blue on the background to kind of contrast those colors and make the cut file stand out. So I'm going to keep working on it, keep adding the same colors here, and I'm eventually going to add in some other things. Okay, I like how that looks, but I wanted to start to mix in some other things. So this is the Tiffany Lou Blue Lindy's Starburst spray that we got a long time ago. Still using it. It's a really pretty turquoise color. And then this is one of the Lindy's Magical Powders that we got. Oh goodness, we've gotten so many of them. I can't remember the name right off the top of my head, but if you want to know the name of it, remind me in the comments and I will let you know. But it is more of a very bold and dark purplish blue, and when I first sprinkled that on there, you saw how bold that was. But I'm going to do the same thing, just add water, kind of use my brush, tilt the paper, let it run and spread, and see how it blends with everything, and see how it looks. Mixing that with the blue spray, and just see where it takes us. And the paper is going to warp a little bit. I get questions about, how do you stop your paper from warping? I don't stop the paper from warping. I try to flatten it out after it's dry, but while you're doing this, it's the nature of paper. This is not watercolor paper. It is thick cardstock, and it can hold a lot of water if you use gesso like I've done here, but the paper is still going to start to wave a little bit, and it's going to start to form indentions, and eventually the water that you're adding, you see the blue moving around, it's going to start to pool in certain spots, and that's okay. You just have to expect that. So let that go for a bit, come back to my hellos, and I'm going to use more of the ink pads to add a little bit of color to the bottom of each of the hellos. This is one of the ink pads from this month. It's called Soft Lilac, and it's a really pretty soft pink color. And I'm just going to smudge the ink pad very lightly to the bottom of each of the words here, and use my brush with a little bit of water to kind of activate it, make it look like watercolor. This is a pink one that we got a few months ago called Frosting, and it's more of a bright summery pink. And I think this turns out very pretty. I really like how subtle it looks. I like this on white cardstock, but I didn't want it just to be stark white. I wanted it to have a little bit of a tint of something, so that's what I'm doing here. It's going to have a white effect when I put it on that blue background, because the contrast in colors is going to be so what's the word I'm looking for? I've got a dark color and a light color. It's going to be very obvious, but I didn't want it to be white, so that's where these ink pads come in handy. I'm going to go ahead and dry this because it's just taking forever to dry, because it's a lot of water, and you can manipulate whether you want the color to go when you use a heat tool like this. So it kind of dried in a little bit of a circle there. And I just feel like I need more. It's not dark enough, so I'm going to keep working on that. I felt like the hellos needed a little more something, so I pulled out that Stamp Market ink pad that we got not too long ago. It's the orange one called Melon, and same thing. I'm just going to smudge it to the bottom, activate it with water a little bit, and just give it some interest and some depth. A little bit of orange, a little bit of pink, and this still winds up being very soft. And again, this is possible because I added the gesso first. Since this is just plain old cardstock, if I was to do the ink pads and then try to activate it with water without the gesso, it wouldn't work. Because when you stamp a stamp into the ink pad and then stamp it onto paper, it's going to stay exactly like the shape of the stamp. And that's pretty much what's going to happen here. If I did this without gesso, it would just look exactly like it did when the ink pad touched the bottom. It would look like lines or whatever. But since I put the gesso on there, it allows me to activate it with water, and it turns it into what looks like some watercolor. All right, so my background is getting there. I like how that's looking. I like that there's some or not aqua, but lighter blue, turquoise color, a little bit of that darker blue. Come back in, layers and layers and layers. Just do it some more. Try not to add too much water here because I really like that dark blue color, that hydrangea petals color. And that was the color that I was going for. So yeah, the background on this layout takes the most time because, you know, it's an experiment. Every time I make a background, it's an experiment, and I like to mix and match the products and just see how they react and see what colors you can come up with. I'm going back to that magical shaker powder that I used before, and I'm going to just repeat what I've done. I'm going to mix up some onto some plastic packaging here for some splatters. I do want some splatters around the edges of the cut file, so I'm going to do that. And you can see what I was talking about with the color pooling in certain spots where the paper starts to warp. It looks like a little snake. And like I said, that's going to happen, so you just have to deal with it. So I brought the heat gun out again, let that dry, and you can see some of the paper waving there, but I really like where this is going. Now this was the game changer. Okay, I pulled back out the Nouveau mousse. Nope, that's not Nouveau mousse. That's the Nouveau crystal drops. We got Nouveau mousse last time in the midnight blue color, and I just squirted a little bit onto the background and then scraped it with my palette knife, and that gave me the color that I was going for. I absolutely loved how it mixed with some of the blue that was already on the paper, and this was the answer to what I was looking for. And I hadn't even thought about smudging the crystal drops down, because the crystal drops are meant to add little dots of interest onto things. That's how this is probably supposed to be used, but I like to challenge things and try products in ways that they were not designed to be used, because that's just how my weird brain works. And this worked out so nice. I love how it looks. That is what I was going for right there. I love these dreamy light colors. Although the background is darker, it still has a light effect when I put the cut file back on top of it. So I was obsessed with this Nuvo. I'm holding it in my hand right now, holding it up like you can see it, but you know, you can't see it. You can see it on my screen there. So I tried to kind of put the cut file back where I thought it was going to go, bring the pictures back, and see what's covered up and what I need to add to it to make it more visible. So I felt like I needed to come out and around where the photos are going to go, because I did want the turquoise color, the Tiffany blue, to be a little more visible around that bottom left photo. So I pulled that back out. Now I'm going to assemble this cut file, and I really love cutting things twice like this, especially when it's a word or words, big title, because it makes it easy to offset it and create this fun shadow effect. And so I thought that big painterly brushstroke paper with the pink and orange would make a great shadow, because it allows you to see a little bit of the pink, a little bit of the orange, and even the light pink on parts of it. And you still get effects of that paper, but it's just like a hint of it. You kind of see the cut file and you think, wow, that looks really dimensional. What is it about that? Okay, here's what I've got so far. I continued to add some of the Nouveau drops, and I think this background is gorgeous. It's so shimmery and pretty. I was very happy with how that turned out. Now I am going to pop up the cut file, so I'm going to take some time and cut up some adhesive foam here to cover the whole back of it. So now it's going to be popped up off the page, and I'm going to start to assemble the photos and get those ready to attach. So all I'm going to add behind those today is a little bit of white tissue paper just to add a little subtle, messy border behind the photos there. And it just kind of, since the white border around the photos is so perfectly straight, the tissue paper gives the effect that the photos are not perfect and they're a little bit crooked and torn. But it's a very subtle thing. It's not something that takes away from the photo. It just kind of adds another element of detail. And since I'm going to overlap and tuck them in to this cut file, I want them to be the same height as the cut file. So I'm adding some foam behind the pictures as well. So now everything's going to be the same height. And I decided that I needed more on this background. Are my backgrounds ever done? Honestly, no, they are not. I can never stop. I thought I was done. Apparently, what am I doing? Splatters, splatters. Okay. I'm going to come back in with that hydrangea color and the Tiffany Lou blue spray because I felt like the pictures kind of covered up what I had done previously, so I needed those to stand out. So that's why I added that. Now I'm going to go through all of the goodies. There's so many exclusive stickers and die cuts and puffy stickers. I mean, look at how cute these things are. They're so bold and bright and summery. And this technically is not a summer page. However, there are lots of things that I feel go with this and match. I cut out those little chipboard words that say fun, epic, and chaos because if you know this child, her middle name should be Chaos. Yes, so that word definitely has to go on this page. This is a little simple stories sticker book, and I had no idea where I would want to stick these just yet, just that I wanted to use them somewhere. So I'm going to pull them off and stick them on some scrap cardstock there, and then I'm going to cut those out, and that way I can use them anywhere and I can move them around like a die cut. And I only wind up using the little orange camera on this layout. But I basically picked out some pink things and some orange things, and then all of these exclusive flowers, these cute little clouds. I'm going to use those as details kind of tucked underneath the photos there. And then lots of flowers. You know, I wasn't sure what embellishments I wanted to use, and there are a ton of these really pretty, bright, colorful flowers, and they match, you know. I mean, my main colors here are the blue, the little bit of orange that's hard to see from here, but there is some orange going on, and yellow. Pink, yellow, orange, and blue. Yeah. So that's kind of what I wanted to go with. And I even put some purple flowers in there because I feel like it just, I don't know, it just works. So this winds up being pretty colorful. And I'm going to go around the photos. I'm going to go a little bit overlapping on top of the hellos. Not too much though. I don't want to cover up the hellos too much because I want them to be visible. I don't want you to look at this and say, what does that say? So I'm going to have that yellow flower kind of right there in the middle because I feel like it's not covering up a part of the word that makes it impossible to read. I'm going to cut some flowers from this pocket life card here to add in a couple of spots. And the circle that I tucked in there by the yellow flower in the middle, I'm going to wind up removing that because I feel like it just covered up too much. Okay, so this is what I've got so far. I did wind up cutting out a few small pink flowers from a big floral pattern paper, another exclusive that matches that pocket life card that I just cut from, and tucked in a little couple more pink flowers there. And I don't want to move anything. I haven't glued anything down yet. I wanted to tuck in some thread in a couple spots, so I'm going to use yellow over on the right side here because I felt like we needed a little pop of yellow in that section. And then I'm going to go with the bright pink color over to the left because that color, it's basically the thread is the color of her shirt, or close to it in the pictures. So that color is going to go over there. And then I thought about adding the dark blue thread, but I decided to go with more pink. And I think the pink is going to go down here under the bottom. So I've got 2 spots of pink and 1 spot of yellow, but I just went with the color that I felt needed to be in that particular area. So now very carefully, I'm going to start to glue things down. Some of the flowers are going to go on top of the cut file, Some of the flowers are going to go underneath the cut file. So some things are flat glued down to the background. Some things are popped up. So I'm going to very carefully glue things down. And it was kind of tricky because I didn't want to just pull up the cut file and flip it over and glue it down, because I would never get those flowers back. So I did kind of pick it up piece by piece, little by little, and squirt some glue under there. I did add that little orange camera right by the epic word. And then I came back into that Simple Story sticker book and added a couple of these phrase and word stickers. And most of these are geared toward travel, but there are several in there that are pretty general that you can use. And so that's what I did here. And I put the first one down and then couldn't figure out where the second one was going to go. I wasn't sure where. I was going to try to put one around each photo. So that's what I wound up doing. And then these are a set of exclusive tiny alphas. I decided to add Gimme a Kiss down at the bottom because I say that so much to her. And she does, as you can see, she will put you in a headlock and attack your face most of the time, which it's cute because she's this little pint-sized Tasmanian devil. But she's very strong, so watch out if you are going to get a kiss from her, because you might be missing some of your face afterwards. But that's okay. More stickers here from the sticker book. I'm going to use an orange one and a pink one, and I want to pop them up. So I'm going to add them to some white cardstock first and then cut those out. I'm going to pop up this little pink flower down here too, just to give it some dimension to create a little cluster down there. And I feel like this brings a pop of orange and a pop of that lighter pink color down to the bottom here. And right now you can't even really read the Gimme a Kiss letters, so I'm going to fix that here in just a minute, because nothing bugs me more than words on a layout that I cannot even read because they blend in too much, or the background's too busy, or it's too much of the same color. And in this instance, the alphas are like that light pinkish purple lilac color, which is different than the background, but they're still so similar that you can't read them. So what I do to fix that is take my white gel pen and trace around them, basically giving them a white border, and it makes a world of difference. You're able to read the words. It's hard to read in the light, but in the final photo here, you'll be able to read the words. I'm going to add my journaling, but when I got my T-square ruler out, I realized that the stickers down here at the bottom were crooked. And, you know, usually I want things crooked. I mean, look at all my photos. They're crooked. They're not straight. I did that on purpose. However, some things I do want straight. And if my journaling lines are going to be right beside those rectangular shaped stickers, then everything needs to be straight. So bust out the ruler for that. Guess what? We're going back to the background for some white splatters, and I think this really sets everything off. It's just some white acrylic paint that I added a little bit of water to make it splatter a lot easier, and then dabbing a little bit of it up. But that's the final layout. I really love how this turned out. I think the background really helps the hellos sort of just pop off the page. And I love the different colors and how they enhance the photos and just the different textures and dimensions. Here are all the close-ups. You can see the work that I did on the hello with the stamp pads, and then the really pretty colors on the background, especially that Nouveau Crystal Drops blue. It is a gorgeous blue color. Highly recommend getting a palette knife, scraping some on to your background, because it is very pretty, and it scraped on like butter. I mean, it was great. I want to do it again. But you see the dimension here. There you can read the title. You can see the shadowing effect. That's because I popped it up with the adhesive foam. And yeah, anyway, let me know if you have any questions. I love the August kits. I cannot wait to dive into them again for next week. So I hope you guys are loving your kits, and I hope this gives you some ideas to try. And I will see you next week. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great week.